Hello everyone. In this session, we are going to discuss a highly probable question for your mains examination. And today's topic is Indian monsoon prediction. So the model question which we are going to discuss in this session is the IMD predicts Indian monsoon rainfall but has often been off the mark with its prediction. Bring out the challenges and the techniques associated with monsoon prediction. So like in this question, the major two aspects that has been asked here, the challenges associated with the monsoon prediction, and the second one, the techniques associated with the monsoon prediction. Okay. So before going into the model answer for this question, now as I said, this is a highly probable question for your mains examination. Why? Because it has been constantly in news, and recently the government has increased, or they have come out with a supercomputer called as Pratyush, right, in order to predict the monsoon more accurately. So with regard to that, the monsoon prediction has been often discussed in various articles. Plus there has been certain people coming out and taking legal action against IMD for inaccurate monsoon prediction, like people say farmers. Certain farmers have filed legal action against IMD, and in all those regards the monsoon prediction was constantly discussed in news. And so the coming back to the question, right, the first statement in this question is saying we are having inaccurate monsoon prediction. So it's an issue, it's a challenge, right? And the major parts of the question, we are having two major parts. The first one, challenges associated with the monsoon prediction. And the initial statement, they are saying inaccurate predictions are there. So the question they are saying what are the challenges associated with prediction. So what are the challenges resulting in the inaccurate prediction? And the second one, what are the techniques which we are using, in the sense the IMD is using to predict the Indian monsoon. Okay. Now this a perfect model answer for this question can be seen as should be discussing the importance of the Indian monsoon, why the prediction is important, as well as say the challenges and techniques associated with it, plus what will be the benefits if you are having a accurate prediction, right? And going to the model answer, it can be broadly divided as the introduction part, how should we start our answer, right? And then the body parts should be containing the challenges as well as the prediction techniques which are used by IMD to predict the monsoon. Plus it should be having the various solutions with which we can solve this issue. Okay, again let's go through each of these areas, right? The introduction part, how can you start the answer, right? I mean, either you can start with saying the importance of monsoon prediction. So since in the statement here, the first statement here, they're saying the monsoon prediction has been inaccurate, right? So we can start our answer by saying what is the importance of monsoon prediction. Okay, so when you think about the importance of monsoon prediction, the first thing that will come to our mind is agriculture. Okay, so the monsoon prediction is important for agriculture, but you have to keep in mind agriculture is not the only area where accurate monsoon prediction is needed. Areas like say disaster management, or say the energy generation, all these things need the accurate monsoon prediction. So you have to make sure that you are not limiting you are not limiting yourself to one of the major aspects of the question. Rather than we should be, through our answer, we should be projecting that we are knowledgeable with regard to the various aspects of the question, right? So while discussing the importance of the monsoon prediction in the introduction part, we can talk about the agriculture always, right? The agriculture should be the core point there, as in the case we are having say more than 60% of the population is dependent on agriculture, and majority of this agriculture is rain-fed agriculture, in the sense they are directly dependent on monsoon. So we need accurate monsoon prediction for agriculture. Plus we need say consider the case of flooding. If you are having above normal monsoon rainfall, more chances of flooding will be there. So we can prepare ourselves to face flooding situations. And if we are having below normal rainfall, we'll be having drought conditions. So from the perspective of disaster management also, the monsoon prediction is really important. And I mean, in this question, there is a statement given here, and you have to make sure that while you are writing your answer, shouldn't be repeating this statement in your in your answer. Shouldn't start your answer by saying, okay, monsoon prediction, IMD predicts Indian monsoon rainfall, but it's inaccurate. Don't start your answer by repeating this statement, right? So rather than that, you can write in some other words stating the same thing, right? So in the question itself, it's been given like the monsoon prediction is inaccurate. Okay. So in order to prove that, the best way to prove that is by giving an example. We can substantiate that statement by bringing in an example, right? You can take the case of say 2012 monsoon prediction, or you can take the case of 2014 monsoon rainfall, where they predicted above normal rainfall, and which resulted, but during that year we had one of the worst drought conditions. So all these things can be seen, or if I am bringing in one example for the inaccurate monsoon prediction, right? So our introduction will be sufficient. Now this is one way in which you can start your answer, right? You should understand that there is no perfect answer. There is no clear cut, okay, this is the correct answer. There is nothing like that. You can start your answer by different means, but make sure that the answer is having a structure, it's having a connection, right? And you're making sense and you're addressing what is being asked. If in that case, you'll be fetching good marks. So as I said, you can start your answer by saying, say, the importance of monsoon prediction, and in order to prove that we are having inaccurate monsoon prediction by IMD, you can bring in one example. Now another scenario is that why we are having this inaccurate monsoon prediction. One of the major reasons behind it, there's a historical reason is there. If you look at most of the western nations, their weather predictions are way accurate than ours, right? India, when compared with the India's case. The major reason behind this is the lack of investment and research and development in meteorological department. Since independence, right, almost all the governments, the meteorological department was least of their priority, mainly because of various other socio, cultural and political issues. Okay, so that due to this historical reason, because most of the governments were giving importance to various other socio, political, cultural issues, right? The investment going towards the meteorological department was way minimal, and because of that we are facing this inaccurate prediction, and we are not able to compare ourselves with the western nations in the case of with regard to the prediction, right, the weather prediction. So either you need to write all of these points, rather than you can stick yourself with say the importance of monsoon prediction, as well as you can give there an example for inaccurate monsoon prediction. Now coming towards the body part of the answer, right? As I said, there are two major aspects that are asked in the question, and you have to understand that if you are leaving out any one of the aspect, you will be losing half of the mark there itself. Okay, so make sure that when you're writing an answer, make sure that try to read the question thoroughly, right, and try to understand that what is being asked in the question and bubble it, right, so that and you can take that keyword from the question and you can give it as a subheading. Okay, a detailed video on based on what should be, how to write in proper answer, giving an answer writing tips has been already been posted in our channel, and the same video, right, the link for that same video can be found from our description, right? So I'm not going into that part, right, what are the do's and don'ts while you're writing an answer. So coming back to this question, the body part of the question is the challenges associated with the monsoon prediction. So going back to the question, the first statement was we are having the inaccurate monsoon prediction, and what are the challenges associated with the monsoon prediction, right? So in that regard, the first major point we can say is interplay of various factors. Now monsoon is it's not very simple, rather than it's a very complex weather event, right, a weather phenomenon which is dependent on various factors like say El Nino La Nina events, or the Indian Ocean dipole conditions, or the dust particles or the aerosol in the Indian subcontinent, or the cloudy conditions in the Indian subcontinent. Even it depends on the soil moisture there on the Indian subcontinent. So all these factors come together and they influence the Indian monsoon, right? And due to that, right, since we are having various factors, their relationship, they are not linear. So because of the interplay of various factors, it's difficult to predict the Indian monsoon. Next one, lack of knowledge regarding various factors or different factors. Like as I said, like there are various factors influencing monsoon, and one example I gave there is the case of aerosol or like the soil moisture, right? It is been found that both of these conditions can influence the Indian monsoon, but at the same time we are having lack of knowledge regarding various other factors. Like as of even now, like the Indian monsoon is being properly studied and understood, right? We are coming to know more details or more things or factors which can influence the Indian monsoon. So lack of knowledge is another challenge regarding the Indian monsoon, and another one is the topography of the Indian subcontinent. I mean, like the India's case, we are having a very diverse topography, like in the sense we are having say plains, we are having plateaus, we are having hill ranges, we are having coastal regions, and certain regions will be like rain shadow regions, and certain other regions will be windward side of the mountain. So depending on all these different topography, the monsoon prediction will be different. So what if I mean, imagine if you are coming out with, say, in this year we will be having above normal rainfall, but at the same time, due to the diversity of the topography of the Indian subcontinent, it's difficult to come out with one such prediction. For example, right? I mean, a western coast of Western Ghat, right? They will be having more monsoon rainfall. At the same time, an interior part in the Maharashtra, or like a district in Maharashtra, which is lying in the rain shadow region of the Western Ghat, will be having very less rainfall, right? So depending on these different topographies, the availability of the monsoon rainfall can vary. So it's difficult because of this topography. It's difficult to come out with accurate predictions. Now another thing is regarding the insufficient data regarding the Indian monsoon. As I said, there are various factors which can influence the monsoon. Okay, one major such factor is like say soil moisture or the aerosol components, like the amount of the dust particles in the atmosphere. These things can influence the Indian monsoon, but when we are predicting the Indian monsoon, we are not considering these factors. You might ask why? Because we are not collecting data regarding the aerosol, or we are not collecting data regarding the soil moisture, and we are predicting the monsoon without the data regarding to these factors. So obviously there will be more chances that the prediction will go wrong. Same way, you all must be knowing that the Indian Ocean plays a huge role in providing the Indian monsoon rainfall, right? Like the monsoon winds, they are blowing from the Indian Ocean towards the Indian subcontinent during the summer season. So the conditions of the deep interior Indian Ocean can influence Indian monsoon, but IMD is not collecting data from the interior Indian Ocean. We are only collecting data from like the border regions, say at most 100 kilometers from the coastal regions of the Indian Ocean. We are collecting data. We are not collecting data from deep interior oceans, right? So all these things will be, point out to the fact that we are having insufficient data, and due to this insufficient data, if you are having the data is not enough, right, the predictions will be inaccurate. Then inaccurate and insufficient initial conditions. Now here what they meaning is IMD is dependent on various factors, and these relationships, they're not linear in the sense if one factor is increasing and the other one will the monsoon will also increase, nothing like that. Rather than that, a factor will be increasing and various other factors will also should be considered there, and their interplay will take place, right? So because of this factor, because of this reason, if you are having any inaccurate measuring of the conditions, for example if you are measuring say aerosol component, or if you are measuring say the temperature of the Indian Ocean, and if there is slight difference in measurement, the prediction will go wrong. Prediction will be way off the mark because they are not having linear relationship, rather than they are having a small variation in the initial condition. It can result in a huge variation in the prediction, right? Since the monsoon is dependent on various factors, it's super difficult to come out with accurate predictions because we need to collect accurate data regarding various different factors. Okay, so all these things can be seen as challenges with regard to the Indian monsoon prediction, and this model question, it can be seen as like a 150 word question, 10-mark question, right? As per the current pattern, we are having two types of main questions for your GS1, GS2 and GS3 papers. We are having 10-mark questions and we are having 15-mark questions. 10 mark question, the word limit is 150, and the 250, the 15 mark questions, the word limit is 250, right? So in this question, it can be seen as, it's more like a 150 word 10 mark question, right? So you will be having the issue of word limit, right? So you need not write all of the challenges. Various challenges can be interrelated, or they can be combined together, like the lack of knowledge regarding different factors and the insufficient data, or the inaccurate and insufficient initial conditions. It can be combined together, right? Now coming towards the other challenges regarding the monsoon prediction. The first one, another challenge is regarding the computation, right? So since we are having various factors influencing monsoon, it's not possible to a computational resources that are needed for computing this much huge data is very high. But in India's case, only recently we are shifting towards a supercomputer model, right? So our computational resources were very limited until very recently, right? And because of this limited computational resources, the predictions were going inaccurate, right? Then frequent weather changes in tropical areas. Now if you look at the western nations, their weather predictions, they are more accurate, and one major reason why it is more accurate, because in the mid latitude and in these higher latitude regions, the weather conditions, they doesn't change frequently. They are more kind of ideal weather conditions, right? Like in the sense they are staying stable. Frequently they are not changing. But in the case of India, since we are a tropical area, there are frequent changes in the conditions. Like there are frequent changes in temperature and the moisture conditions, humidity, all these things, they change change largely. And because of this frequent weather changes, difficult to predict accurately in the Indian monsoon. Then limited investment for research and development. This is actually a historical reason why Indian IMD is not able to come out with accurate predictions. At the same time, most of the Western nations are predicting their weather events very accurately. The major reason behind there is the minimal investment which we took in the meteorological department. So these things are the major challenges. As I said, you need not write all these challenges, rather than you can combine together various challenges, since we are having an issue of word limit, right? So if it's a 250 word question, you should be writing all these things. The next major aspect which was asked in the question is the techniques associated with the monsoon prediction. Okay. So the first one is statistical method. Now, statistical method is also called as ensemble method, and what does it mean is actually we'll be predicting the monsoon based on its historical behavior, how it has behaved in the past. Now that will be considered, and based on that we'll be making the future predictions, in the sense for example, previous year there was an El Nino year, and we'll be having data what was the monsoon amount when the temperature in the Pacific Ocean was this much, right? So based on that data, we'll be analyzing the temperature of the Pacific Ocean, and based on based on this previous past data, we'll be coming out with the future predictions. And such technique we call it as statistical method. And more than data for the more than 50 to 60 years is there with the IMD, and various factors based on the Indian Ocean dipole conditions, or various different factors, how they have influenced Indian monsoon, right? So these, based on these historical data, we make future predictions, and such method is called as statistical method. Until very recently, right, until say 2016 and 15, we were completely dependent on the statistical method, and that's one reason why we were having inaccurate monsoon prediction. The statistical method will be inaccurate, right? Because the monsoon will be, certain time one factor will be more predominant than the other, right? So if you're going by the historical data, it need not mean that we'll be getting an accurate prediction. And the next one is dynamic model. And I told you why this topic is important, because recently the government has decided to use a supercomputer in weather prediction, which is called as Pratyush. Okay, so the weather prediction based on the supercomputer 3D models is called as dynamic model. So in dynamic model, what we are actually doing there, we'll be developing equations. We will be developing equations or relationships with the certain factors in Indian monsoon, and these factors, the conditions, will be fed into the computers, right? So they will be computing based on these initial conditions and these data which we fed into the computers. The prediction will be made. For example, like the humidity condition, humidity is this percentage, the temperature in the Indian Ocean is this percentage, like the soil moisture data, this much percentage. So all these factors should be having a relationship with the Indian monsoon, and if you are able to find out this relationship with the Indian monsoon, relationship between the factors and the Indian monsoon rainfall, we will be able to predict them using the computational resources, and such prediction we call it as dynamic model. And as of now, India is actually following a combination of statistical and dynamic model, because the dynamic model as of now is not completely operational. So as of now we are making use of statistical as well as the supercomputer model, right? And since the supercomputer Pratyush was recently used, you should be writing that in your answer, right? And it will project that like you are up to date with this area, this particular question. Okay. Now another way in which we are predicting monsoon is making use of the weather satellites, and in that regard, like specific satellite you can mention there is INSAT 3DR. Okay. So mainly in the Indian monsoon is IMD is making predictions, monsoon predictions based on the statistical method and the dynamic method, right? Dynamic model. Now in this question, if you look at the, you might think challenges and techniques has been asked and we need to write only those parts. At certain times what you have to think is if there is a problem or if there is an issue being asked in the question, right, we shouldn't leave any of these problems or issues unaddressed. So if we are writing a challenge, right, we should be having solutions to tide over those challenges, right? UPSC is not expecting problem finders from you, rather than they are expecting problem solvers, and our solution should be practical so that the issue will be solved. Okay. So certain times you won't be having enough word limit to provide for the solutions. In that scenario you should be using minimal words and should be writing more holistic solutions, right? So in this question, right, the challenges associated with the inaccurate prediction has been asked, and we have written many challenges like various factors and insufficient data collection and certain things, right? So when we are saying such challenges exist, we should be coming out with solutions with which we can solve those issues. Okay. The first one such issue, solution you can give there is a need for block wise data. So as of now the IMD is providing say one single prediction is being made for the entire subcontinent, and because of the diversity of the topography, right, this data, this prediction for the whole nation will be very insufficient for various regions. For example, right, if you are considering say one interior region in Maharashtra, right, and if IMD is saying okay, we are having we are going to be normal rainfall, and all of the western coast of the Western Ghats will be having more rainfall. At the same time, towards the central regions will be having reduced monsoon rainfall. And recently a farmer has has taken a legal action against IMD. The case is like this because the IMD told the monsoon is going to make normal onset, and the farmer came out with the sowing and they took agricultural activity, but at the same time the monsoon was delayed for more than 1 month, right? So but most of the regions, all the other regions, the monsoon were making normal onset, but at this one particular region or the certain regions the onset was delayed. Okay. So due to the diversity in topography, we cannot just depend on one whole prediction for the entire nation, rather than we need block wise data, right? We need block wise prediction, right? For these region this will be the prediction, and these other regions the prediction is this much, in the sense, say for the western coast we are having more prediction, this is the prediction the above normal rainfall suppose, and the interior regions we are having chances of reduced rainfall is there. So only in that scenario we will be able to make use of these predictions. Otherwise due to this diverse topography the predictions will won't be sufficient. Okay. So one solution you can give there is the need for block wise data. Now if you are writing an answer and you are bringing in this point towards the solutions part, should be explaining what is block-wise data. Don't just write like need for block-wise data. Don't assume that the one who is reading your answer know what you're meaning here. Okay. So rather than that, try to link this topic, link the solution with the question, right? And then research collaborations. Now this is another area through which like this topic is seen in news. As I told you, like this topic can be expected for your mains examination because they are discussed frequently in news articles. And in one such current affair development in this area is the research collaborations India is making with various other nations like say US, UK, Japan, Australia. These nations, we are coming out with research collaborations, and if we could make use of their expertise in the weather prediction, and we will be able to predict the monsoon more accurately. Okay. Then detailed data collection from Indian Ocean. It need not be Indian Ocean here. We have to collect data from data regarding say aerosol or like soil moisture. All these things actually directly influencing Indian monsoon, but we are not collecting data from it, and we are not considering these soil moisture, aerosol. These factors are not being considered while making the predictions. And if in that scenario, right, if you are not considering a factor which is influencing the Indian monsoon, then the predictions will be obviously inaccurate. Okay, how can we tide over that issue? By increasing the data we are collecting from regarding the factors, right? And one example you can give there is the case of Indian Ocean. Then another solution you can give here is a case of probabilistic data. Now, in order to make you understand what is probabilistic data, you have to understand that how IMD is making predictions. Now, based on the historical data, we have developed an average value of the monsoon rainfall, and it's called as LPA, like long period average. Okay. Now, the long period average comes out as 89 centimeters of rainfall. So, based on how the monsoon has behaved in the past, we have developed a quantity which is long period average from the literal meaning itself, right? Long period average. So, what's the average amount of the monsoon for the long period, right? So, it comes out as 89 centimeters of rainfall. Now, if in 1 year we are getting say 96% to 104% of this 89 centimeters of rainfall, now such year can be seen as a normal monsoon rainfall. Okay. So, if our predictions are saying that our the rainfall will be 96 to 104% of the LPA, that year we are having normal monsoon rainfall. And if the percentage is more than this, say 10% of the 189 centimeters, in that year we will be having above normal rainfall. And if it's below the below the 96% of the 89 centimeters, we will be having below normal rainfall. So, IMD will be saying, okay, this year we are having above normal rainfall, but there will be chances that the inaccuracy can be there, and there will be chances that in certain regions it can go, the monsoon can be deficient. In that scenario, instead of coming out with say above normal or below normal or normal rainfall, we have to come out with probability, right? In the sense, this year 60% chance is that the monsoon will be above normal. So, here we have included a probability, right? So, that means a person who is considering the monsoon prediction for the decision making, right, can consider that okay, 60% chance is that the monsoon will be above normal, and still there is a 40% chance is that the monsoon will be below normal, right? So, such approach we say it as probabilistic approach, right? So, as of now the IMD is not doing the probabilistic data or providing the probabilistic data. So, all these things, right, probabilistic data or the detailed collection from the detailed data collection as well as research collaborations and the block wise data. So, all these things will enable us to tide over the challenges of Indian monsoon prediction. Okay. And since since in the answer, like, as of now we have addressed the importance of the Indian monsoon, and we have seen, like, what are the challenges associated with the monsoon prediction, and we have seen what are the techniques IMD is using to predict the Indian monsoon, and what are the solutions which can give there in order to tide over these challenges. Now, while concluding your answer, right, you can say, like, if we are taking these solutions and if we can come out with accurate monsoon predictions, what will be the future benefit, right? And if you are concluding your answer by by interlinking with various dimensions, that will impress the evaluator and that will fetch you more marks, right? So, in order to do that, you can interrelate, you can conclude your answer by linking the, relating the monsoon prediction with various areas, like agrarian economy of India, or you can interrelate it with food security, or like the increased income for farmers, and like the disaster management, like the flooding or drought management will be proper if you are having accurate predictions, and like reduced farmer distress, right? You need not write, as I said earlier, you need not write all these things in your conclusion. You can take various dimensions, but you have to make sure that, like, you are not limiting yourself to one major dimension of the answer, right? You have to make sure that you are projecting different dimensions of the answer through your answer sheet, and that will enable you to fetch more marks. That will give an impression to the evaluator that you are knowledgeable regarding various aspects of the given question. Okay. So again, briefing through the question, like the question was regarding the inaccurate monsoon prediction. So we started our answer by saying like the importance of the monsoon prediction. Then, like, we discussed the challenges in the body part of the answer. We discussed the challenges and the techniques associated with the monsoon prediction. And since these, since an issue was asked in the question, we gave, like, solutions through which we can solve the issue, right? And while concluding the answer, like, we are saying the future benefits, like, through which, like, what are the future benefits if you are having accurate monsoon prediction. Now, a detailed video on, like, how to write a proper answer, like, what are the answer writing tips, has been already been uploaded into our channel. The video for that video can be found from our description. And my next video, I will be coming out with more, like, another model question which are more probable for your mains examination. Thank you.